video is going to look at how to plan an essay using the process that I go through. Everyone has an individual process and it's best that you find your own, but if you're completely stuck where to start, I think it can be useful sometimes to see the steps that other people go through. So to start with, you need to think about the question. I've put up an example question here about the importance of the conch. There are nearly always 2 bullet points underneath, so please pay attention to those. It will steer you where your answer should be going, and also if you're completely stuck, it's a great way to give you some ideas. So here it's about different characters responding to the conch, and also how Golding is using the conch to explore ideas about society and the people in Lord of the Flies. And that final bullet point is actually a bit of a gift. It's going to make sure that you explore the writer's message, which is hopefully going to ensure that you score highly in your essay. So what I do generally first, if I've got the question in front of me, is start thinking about how those 3 things, the main question and the 2 bullet points, linked together. And then I will underline the important words. So it's what is the importance of the conch. It's not just what does the conch do, but its importance. We need to think about different characters and their response to the conch, and Golding exploring ideas about people and society. And I think it really helps to focus where your answer is going, to really emphasise what the most important ideas are. Then grab some paper. If you're in an exam, you'll have space to do this. If you're at home or just in school, just grab some scrap paper. And I put the 3 most important elements from the question on the sheet of paper with space to write all around them. When you're doing this, also start thinking that it doesn't matter if some of the ideas you then don't use. It's far better to just get all your ideas down and then start organising them and moving things out of what you write about. Also think about where is the best place to begin. For this question, for me, it has to be the conch. That is what the main question is asking you about. So anything to do with the characters and people in society, you've got to have a firm link to the conch. So here I've just dumped down a load of ideas that are linked to the question, whether it's about the fragility of the conch or how Jack reacts to the conch, what Golding might be saying through his use of the conch in the novel, but I've just sort of popped everything down that I can think of. Some of it may get used, some of it may not. Once you feel you've got all your ideas down, or as many as you can come up with in sort of 3 or 4 minutes, then start thinking about bringing an order to those ideas. Ideally, you're going to have 3 paragraphs in your essay. You want to link all the ideas together. So if you're writing about the importance of the conch, don't just see it in isolation, see it within the 2 bullet points that are at the bottom of the question. So it's the importance of the conch, but what it's revealing about the characters, what Golding is saying, how other characters respond to it. So think about linking very coherently those ideas, because that is going to help you score much more highly in your essay. Consider your assessment objectives. Are you going to say something that covers off AO1, 2 and 3, and then check back each time against the question whether you've got the correct focus. Once you've got your checklist, I always tend to use colours or lines to link. So here you can see I've decided that the fragility of the conch links to its destruction, and also that Piggy is someone who cradles it and recognises its importance and fragility. And then thinking about the people in society and what Golding says about those through the novel, I think the fragility of the conch and the order that it brings could be linked to the idea of dictatorship versus democracy. So I've gone through and used different colours to think how I could link all of these ideas together. Make sure that there's a balance within your answer. So you're trying to get conch, characters, people and society all within one facet of your paragraph. You don't want one paragraph on the importance of the conch, one on the character's response, one on people and society. That will make for a very weak essay, and it's far more sophisticated to link the 3 ideas together. I would then start arranging each of those 3 ideas into the assessment objectives. This is how it works for me. You may have a different method that works just as well, but I think it's very important for me to ensure that every answer covers what the exam board is looking for. So I've gone for the fragile yet beautiful, talking about Piggy, everything here that I then don't have a quotation immediately for. I've put need Q, which means I need a quotation. By the time you do your exam, you'll have those quotations at your fingertips. You'll have learned them, you'll know them inside out. But at an early stage of essay planning, you might think this is where I need to either look in my copy of the novel or look in any of the notes I've made. You want to start arranging your ideas and making sure there's a breadth to what you're writing about. Are they covering context? Have you got something in there that you can analyse and you can bring terminology into? And have you got a clear answer to the question? So I've got this as my first paragraph on the fragility and beauty of the conch, which is linked to Piggy, his feelings about the conch and the destruction of both Piggy and the conch. My second paragraph will look at Jack and his reaction to the conch and how the conch starts as a barrier to the descent into savagery and then typifies the dichotomy of civilization and savagery. I've got AO2 in there, Jack using his modal verbs when he talks about we should have lots of rules. I've got the anthropomorphism in chapter 3 when he's like a dog. Again, both of those needs quotations. So if I were planning my essay at home, that would be something I would be looking up. And also I'd bring in the context that Golding as a school teacher would know what boys were like, and that Jack's reactions and final dismissal of the conch would show as a school teacher he would understand that facet of a boy's personality. And for my final paragraph, I'd look at the idea of Ralph's relationship with the conch, bringing his leadership and his fairness, the ideas of totalitarianism versus utilitarianism, that Ralph reacts to the importance of the conch by helping him form a society. I've got some quotations here with language that I can look at the adjectives, the glimmering, also that Maurice took it obediently. We've got the very final quotation in the novel when Ralph reflects on the end of civilization and innocence, which is intrinsically linked to the importance of the conch. You can see here I've got AO3 as a question mark. It's because in my plan I didn't have necessarily anything that linked to context, but on reflection I would have AO3 in the first two paragraphs, and also when I'm writing about this, how Ralph is being used by Golding, it brings in the writer's message, which, as we know, is a hugely important facet. So making sure that there's a breadth to the answer by bringing that element in as well. After that, I normally go through a checklist. I look back at each paragraph. Have I got points that are going to answer the question, scope in my AO2 for terminology and some good analysis, and have I got an area of context in at least 2 out of the 3 of my paragraphs, and those that I haven't, have I got a strong idea about the writer's message in the novel which links back to the question. Once you can tick all of those off, and for instance if you're at home, if you notice there's a gap in your use of terminology, you can look up better quotations that allow you to have that analysis, look at how Golding is using language or using literary techniques to create and support the ideas that you're covering. Once you've got all those ticked off, then it's time to start thinking about putting your ideas together. For each paragraph, I tend to think about having a very tight structure. Time is so short in the exam, and you've got so much to do that I think by sticking to the idea of the topic sentence, a quotation, analysis, terminology, context, and an evaluation of that idea, linking it back to the question, means that you are most likely to hit the higher levels on the mark scheme and produce a more coherent and well-rounded essay. Obviously, if you're in the exam, you've only got your quotations that you've carried in your memory. If you're at the earliest stage of your GCSE course and you're writing essays in class, it's absolutely fine to be using your copy of Lord of the Flies, make sure you've got all the quotations you need. And I think sometimes people worry about how many quotations there should be per paragraph. I think if you've only got one, then you're making your life a little bit harder. You don't need to remember huge, long quotations, but just that, one word in quotation marks, that the conch is, quotation mark, fragile, shows that you're using what Golding has written, that you know the novel really well, that you can support your ideas with Golding's language. In my next essay, I'm going to look at using this plan to actually write some of the essay, which I will be producing for you in the video. There's no difference to planning an essay on Lord of the Flies than there is on Romeo and Juliet or poetry. It's that rigorous application of, have you answered the question? Have you covered the assessment objectives? And have you got some sort of coherence to your response? I hope that's helpful. And as I say, the next presentation will be looking at actually using this plan then to write a high level answer. Thank you.